Facilitating Learner-Centered Teaching. Report by
Digamo, Evelyn C.
Bachelor of Secondary Education, major in English. Block 3D.
Submitted to Ms. Juliet Julebing. Topic: Unit 3 Point to Cognitive Perspective. Module 9, Gestalt Psychology.
Hello everyone, good afternoon. So my topic is all about the cognitive perspective of Gestalt Psychology. But before that, I will introduce first myself. So I am Evelyn C. Digamo, Bachelor of Secondary Education, major in English. So first, I'd like you to see some pictures here. So just tell me what did you see this picture? So in the first picture, what did you see here? So is it you or is it me? So what about the second picture? So is it a good or is it a evil? So what about the third picture? So is it the word illusion or is it the word optical? So why did I share these pictures? So why? Because it's actually related to Gestalt Psychology. So what is Gestalt Psychology? So Gestalt Psychology was the initial cognitive response to behaviorism. So it contradicts some of the concepts in behaviorism. Okay, so we see here the development of different theories. Okay, so in pursuit, of course, of understanding how learning happens, and so how could we help in long run? How could we help learners learn best? So we have now Gestalt Psychology, no? So which is cognitive theory. It emphasizes the importance of sensory host and the dynamic nature of visual perception. So it's more of sensory, right? So it's more of visual perceptions. That's why I shared with you these pictures here, and of course you perceive these pictures, and you were able to analyze sooner that there are two words, not only a one word that you can read here. So you can read here me and you, good and evil, and optical and illusion. Okay, if you see the bigger picture, because you see it as a whole, not as an isolated part. Because when you isolate on any of these pictures I have shared with you, could only reduce one word. It's either me and you. Okay, so but if you look as a whole, you can read the word me and you, good and evil, and optical and illusion. So another definition of Gestalt Psychology is a school of thought that looks at the human mind and behaviors as a whole when trying to make sense of the world around us. Gestalt Psychology suggests that we do not simply focus on every small component. Instead, our minds tend to perceive objects as elements of more complex systems. So the term Gestalt means form or configuration. So psychologists Max Wertheimer, Wolfgang Kohler, and Kurt Kafka studied perception and concluded the perceivers or learners are not passive but rather active. So Gestalt psychologists have 6 principles, which are law of proximity, law of similarity, law of closure, law of good continuation, law of good pregnance, and law of figure or ground. So law of proximity, that are closer together will be perceived as a coherent object. So we see here the image, it is an emoji. Okay, so we didn't see her as an individual, but we see her as a group. Okay, so it is a coherent object. We focus on objects that are closer together. Okay, so when they are closer together, we said we perceive as one. We perceive it as a coherent object, that there are group. That's how we will look at it. That's how we perceive it. And we will proximity talks about the distance law of proximity. When objects are perceiving are near each other, like this, so we perceive them as belonging together. No, alright, again, we don't see them as an individual, but we see here as a group. No, so as a group, but no, so what's the connection to the teaching learning process? Okay, so for example, if you are teaching us concepts, so since the principle is when object we are perceiving are near each another, we perceive them as belonging together. So that's a law of proximity. So we see her as a group, not as an individual. So that is a law of proximity. So the second is a law of similarity. Elements that look similar will be perceived as part of the same form. So look at this image. No, so we have a emoji circle and emoji triangle. So you see that only triangles and circles. So the way you see it's different. No, how we can do that? No? How we can do this? No? You can see the image there, it forms also another shape. Also, and it's form what? It forms another triangle. So here, since it's organized now, the circle in such a way that form of shape of triangle in relation in teaching learning process. So that's why we organize our lessons, no, to know every group similar lesson in the isolation. No, so we should similar our lesson. So we should know our lesson. So that's a law of similarity. So let's proceed to the law of closure. So we tend to fill the gaps of or close the figures we perceive. So law of closure, as you see here, no, so we don't see the gaps, no, so we don't see the gaps actually, but we what you call that one, we do see but what do we see is we see this as continuing, no, so we have we can see here as a triangle, no, continuing, complete, and to complete the gap, no, to complete the gap. I'd like to emphasize it here, the what you call that one is naputol ito, but it based our perception, no, na but the triangle but this it form as a triangle, no, so triangle and circles. Now what is the implication of law of closure? So it's important that we make our lessons complete and clear. So that is a law of closure. So let's proceed to the law of good continuation. So individuals have the tendency to continue contours whenever the elements of the patterns establish an implied direction. So this is an example of law of good continuation. So we can say here have a continuation. They have a direction, but they have a continuation. So that's we call a law of good continuation. So let's proceed to the law of good pregnancy. So the stimulus will be organized into as good a figure as possible. So it is an example of law of good pregnancy. So what is the application in this law? Holds that when you're presented with a set of ambiguous or complex object, your brain will make them appear as simple as possible. It's innate to us in our brain that if we presented with an object, so with an object like this, now our brain would understand it in the simplest form, in a simplest possible way. So that is a law of good pregnancy. The last of Gestalt principles is law of figure and or ground. We tend to pay attention and perceive things in the foreground. So what is the implication of teaching learning process? By the way, so this is an example of law of figure or ground. So what is the implication of teaching learning process, since we focus on the foreground? So for example, the teacher's lecturing in front of the students, so the students will pay attention of the teacher, so they can write what they said of the teacher. So if they have an exam, so of course the students will review for the coming exam, so right, so then the students will easily open their handouts, then they can easily understand what is this topic, what the teachers said during the lectures. So that's all about the law of figure and ground. So that's all for my report. By the way, I will recall the Gestalt principles. So law of proximity, law of similarity, law of closure, law of good continuation, law of good pregnancy, law of good figure, and or ground. So that's all for my report, and thank you for watching.